Hello again, Cons here. So from the previous video, we did the bar run. This is now the dual blade run. We got these all in the same stream. We did these live and stuff. And so what I thought I would do is commentate over the dual blade speedrun and show you exactly how I handle the fight and what sort of openings I planation and stuff like that, just so that anybody who's trying this fight with the dual blades can maybe get a little bit of a hand. Just to clarify at the start, I am using some Fatalis gear. I have a disclaimer at the end as to why that's okay and as to how you can sort of build accordingly to get similar results, albeit slightly slower, but with just regular builds. But for now, we're using the Fatalis gear, and again, I'll have that disclaimer at the end. So first things first, we're buffing up. I'm using Dash Juice as normal. I have a few stamina skills on the set. I will talk about the set at the end of the video, but just before we do that, I guess I'll give some of the most important skills now. Noteworthy to this playstyle are obviously like just a couple of stamina skills. We've got some points of constitution, some points of stamina surge. I don't normally run so many stamina skills on my dual blade sets. However, I did find that I was like quite frequently running out of stamina, and that can be quite dangerous when it comes to Fatalis, because all it takes is one wrong move and it takes you out. I'm also running a fair bit of evasion window. You can get away with not running evasion window just with more clever positioning, but at least for my playstyles, and especially with the final phase, that's what I'm doing. The other important skill that I'm running that's quite noteworthy is 3 points of part breaker. Now, obviously that's a bit weird for a speedrun, and I might not recommend that for everybody, but for me, what I found was that by running 3 points of part breaker, I can much more frequently get these head flinches. I can actually consistently break the head in phase 1. If you aren't aware, and this is kind of the reason I don't do the big cannon opener, is the Fatalis' Novas seem to be based on health thresholds, as far as we can tell. And, well, so the exact reason is a little bit confusing. But essentially what I'm going to do is use the roaming ballista trick, and you'll see what I mean by trick, the sort of the smoke bomb AI manipulation, to get a knockdown and to get a head break. What I was doing is without part breaker, I would be unable to break the first horn in phase 1. And so what would happen is we would get stuck at 1 HP for the first horn break for a long time, and then we would break the first horn in second phase. However, by running 3 points of part break, I'm able to break the first horn in phase 1, which means that all of our damage in phase 2, rather than looking us to 1 HP for the horn, rather than keeping us stuck at that 1 HP threshold and then having to do the rest of the second horn in phase 3, I was able to break both horns before phase 3. It's a little bit confusing, it's a little bit complicated to explain, but I guess a fairly simple TLDR is if you focus entirely on the head, which again isn't optimal, but if you focus entirely on damaging the head in phase 1 and you run 3 points of part breaker, you can get the head break in phase 1 really easily, which means that in phase 2, you're pretty much guaranteed to get that head break too, which makes the final phase a lot easier. That's not necessarily the best strat in terms of speedrunning, but it is an extremely consistent and extremely easy way to beat Fatalis consistently. So that's why I would recommend that you do it, especially if you're doing the fight a little bit more casually. I got unlucky with cones here, obviously. It might take you a little bit longer to bait out this many cones, but usually it doesn't take much more than a couple extra minutes than this. But anyway, I know I'm not talking about the openings yet, I'm talking about some general stuff, because I think the openings are fairly self-explanatory. I like to rebuff up during the first Nova. Now you can see, smoke bomb's equipped, and I'm putting my temporal mantle on. That's because the last skill that I forgot to mention is heavy artillery, and I have that in the temporal mantle, just because it's a nice combo, and I'm only using it for roaming ballista anyway. So we temporal mantle up, get on the roaming ballista, wait for Fatalis to land, and you can see now, its AI is getting a little bit confused because we're damaging it, but it also can't really see us. This lets you land all of the shots on the chest. You can see 87. If we landed all 100 of these, that's 8,700 damage on the chest. That is absolutely crazy. And then you get a free opening too, as you can see. When it lands, you get that free opening. And because right now, during this opening, the head can't be broken. So if I hadn't broken the first horn in phase 1, right now, we would get it down to 1 HP and it would just get stuck there. But because we've already broken it, now this opening here and all of this damage we're doing is contributing towards the next horn break. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, anyway, so that opening is really handy, and it basically churns through phase 2. You can do like more than half of phase 2's health in that opening alone, so it's a really handy way to do, and I would definitely recommend you try it. So you can see we're re-enraging. You can obviously head flinch here. I don't really like head flinching, I think it's kind of a pain. But you can obviously head flinch if you feel like it. Flinch shot, rather. I'm getting it back into rage mode for that extra 10% damage. Again, if you aren't worried about speedrunning and you're not, reaching the 30-second time limit, you don't need to force rage mode, but it can be quite handy. And now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the process. We're going to keep baiting cones until the second horn break, essentially. I know this is weird. A lot of the speedruns for dual blades try to focus chest. And I completely understand why they do that. They don't get the second horn break necessarily. But this is supposed to be a sort of mixture between a speedrun and a run that's more accessible for everybody watching to help you beat the fight. So yeah, that's the reason I'm focusing so much on the horns. Whereas I've seen a lot of other dual blade runners, what they're doing is they're tenderizing the chest and just damaging the chest as much as possible, which is definitely viable. It just means that the final phase you'll be more likely to get one shot by stuff. So as you can see, sometimes you just get bad RNG. It's okay. The nice thing about the demon dash, if you have a good amount of stamina, is it's fairly easy to get away, even if you get pinned by that cone. Not pinned, but even if that lingering projectile kind of puts you in a bad position for the cone. Now, generally speaking, I like to be on this side of his head, not in the teeth, because as he gets up from the hornbreak opening, it pushes you alongside with it and lets you get a few extra hits off. But that's kind of optimizing it, and maybe isn't quite necessary. It might be worth clutch clawing on at the end. Oh, also, the ledge kind of fucked us anyway, so I guess... Oh, one other thing I should mention is if you do the roaming ballista and you don't manage to get the knockdown, you are more than welcome to pick up some regular ballista bullets and just pop them into Fatalis, and it should fall down fairly quickly. It shouldn't be too many shots away. The regular ballista bullets have a much higher modifier in terms of getting that knockdown than the roaming ballista bullets. So even though it looks like you're doing like rubbish damage, something like, I think each ballista bullet, if you were to do like 50 damage from a ballista bullet, that's the equivalent of doing 300 damage from the roaming ballista. So you can see how quickly it can contribute to getting the Fatalis knockdown. So as always, during the Novas we rebuff, make sure you sharpen up, make sure you dash juice and you get all of that other stuff. And as with the bar run, I like to use the ballista binder as soon as possible. Oh, also I got kind of screwed here because I tried to go into a binder and I didn't, but that's fine. I like to do the binder as soon as possible just to get it out of the way so I don't have to think about it. And I'm also using this opportunity to tenderize because the chest ran out of tenderize. And I've already kind of squandered most of this opening anyway, so it's not a huge deal. You can see I have a health augment on my dual blades. I am using that a little bit too aggressively to heal. I am within one-shot range at the moment, and it's kind of risky. If you're playing this, obviously, be a bit more, err on the side of healing more rather than playing hyper-aggressively. Now, in terms of opening themselves, in the previous phases, we've just been going for the horns during the cone animations. Sorry for that ding. But yeah, we've been going for the horns during the cone animations. And now, so there's not really a huge amount to talk about there. You get into cone, and then when he cones, you do like a couple of hits into a demon dance. But now that he's in final phase, we're going to be focusing the chest more because it's a much more consistently available hitbox. It's much harder to bait cones in this phase too, in my opinion, just because he has so many more options available to him. So yeah, now I can hopefully start talking about the moveset in a little bit more detail. We've broken both horns, so you're completely welcome to just tank the Nova completely if you heal properly. So don't worry too much about it. I do like to dash juice up and stuff during these openings just so they don't accidentally run out. You can see I forgot to grab my binder, but I'll fix that now. When I saw him charging towards me, I obviously could have waited, but there's like a half chance that he just fireballs you, so that's the reason I went for it. So yeah, anyway, the binder isn't exactly an opening that I need to cover. I think I've covered all of the miscellaneous stuff. Check the bow run just in case. You might want to watch the other guides anyway, just in case they cover some useful information. I don't really know what I'm doing here, to be honest. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. What do I do here? Oh, well, mid-rage. I didn't have enough time to... Oh. I actually regretted this. I remember on stream I was thinking to myself, why didn't I just go for the chest? He's doing the crisscross fire breaths here. If he's up against a wall, it's fairly easy to stay up against him and keep attacking. This is why I like to have stamina, by the way. If you have a good reservoir of stamina, then it's very easy to dodge pretty much anything Fatalis throws at you. And I am playing a little bit too aggressively with my stamina, to be honest with you. Again, if you're doing this just for wins, I would recommend you do not take some of the risks that I'm taking in terms of stamina management. Just err on the side of having full stamina. But yeah, so the nice thing about having a lot of stamina is it's very easy for you to just spam dashes to get away from pretty much anything, any big move that Fatalis throws towards you. Just trying to think what else needs to be said. Keep an eye out on when the dragonator is ready to go again. You'll get the little notification that says the dragonator will be ready in 1 minute. And keep an eye out for the roaming ballista will be ready in 1 minute too. You can get another one of those knockdowns if you save your temporal mantle. Oh, sorry, not temporal. So the reason I say that is because my heavy artillery jewels are in my temporal mantle. If you do plan on using the roaming ballista again, if the fight goes on for a long time. Oh, good. Oh, wait 1 minute. Well, anyway, yeah, you should temporal mantle to do that because that's where the heavy artillery jewels are. But yeah, you can see I'm not demon dancing him. Even though I had openings to do demon dances there, I refrained from like committing to a demon dance. And the reason I did that is because if I did demon dance there's a chance he would flinch. Like the first few hits of the demon dance would cause him to fall down. And you know his flinch animation gives you, pins you. And that can basically be a true combo into death. And so if I get the feeling that I've done a decent amount of damage to the chest and he's kind of close to flinching, I will try not to commit to a demon dance. Like right now, you can see, for example, I really don't want to demon dance his chest because I'm really worried that it's going to get me killed. As you can tell, I'm pretty bad at actually estimating how close he is to flinching, but as always, better to err on the side of playing it safe, you know what I mean? Especially if you're not doing the special assignment, because you have, you know, far fewer carts. Okay, so these hunts tend to go on a little bit longer than regular hunts, you know, they're like 13, 15 minutes, so I kind of ran out of things to say. Also, that hitbox is bullshit. 1 minute until the dragonator can be used, you can see on the screen, so I'm going to start sort of sticking close to the dragonator area, because I don't want it to fly to the complete other side of the map. That said, the dragonator itself does have a pretty reasonable amount of range. Oh, and I guess sometimes you just get unlucky. So here we go. I have been wind pressured all the way at the back of the map. I probably don't have enough time to survive the Nova. So what you do is if you heal to full health just before he Novas you, you can see how much damage we took there, and that wasn't with like a Divine Blessing proc or anything. You are completely safe. You can completely tank the Nova. That's only if you've broken both horns though. That's another reason I'm quite partial to breaking both horns. Also, I thought the Dragonator was back, but I guess not. Yeah, that is the reason I really like having both horns break, and it just makes a whole bunch of openings much more survivable, basically. What else? Yeah, I mean, the actual openings themselves, this downward breath is always a free tenderize. A little bit risky. It can like pin straight afterwards or use an attack that can get you. But if you claw onto it fast enough and have a weapon that has a fast enough claw move. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, you got to be careful with this. I'm sticking over here because I want to go to the Dragonator. If you get unlucky with the cone, if he cones you and you're in a bad spot, just Superman dive twice and you'll be fine. There we go, a free 6,600 damage and a little opening. Keep in mind that the Dragonator opening itself is fairly small compared to other openings. It's not like the head break where it lasts enough for like 3 demon dances. You can see halfway through the second demon dance, he's already getting up. That's not as big a deal if you're focusing the chest because the chest stays still, but if you're going for the head, you will very much notice just how small that opening is. You can see, if you see his head like cocked to the side like that and he starts like charging up a fire breath, that's going to be the one that goes all the way around his body. You got to be a little bit careful about that one. It's not that big a deal because we've broken both horns. However, just try to get onto one of his sides, the side that isn't getting fire breathed at first, and just stick around close to his chest, and you'll be able to dodge the whole thing. No need to tank the Nova again because we got lucky enough to iframe through the wind pressure. So just run through. You can see how little damage it does once you've broken both horns. This is the end pretty much. He should only have 5% health after this because this is the third mini Nova inside the final phase. And so he's very close to being dead here. All you got to do is just make sure you don't die. And you can see 1 minute till a roaming ballista can be used. So even if the hunt does last a little bit longer than mine, if yours lasts a little bit longer than mine rather, you'll be able to roaming ballista and get another free opening and another free nearly 10,000 damage, which is actually kind of ludicrous. You can see my temporal mantle's pretty much perfectly timed to come back for that too. That move there, when he's in rage mode, you can just stand close to his body and it won't be enough to get you. You can see I'm still not demon dancing, by the way. Right there, I remember because I was at the end of the hunt, I was convinced that he was going to die from that demon dance. And so that's the reason I committed to it. As I said, 5% health, so I was 100% sure he was dead, and he pretty much was. That was actually a risky demon dance before. I probably shouldn't have gone for that. If he'd pinned me, I would have been dead. But anyway, there you go. You got to take a few risks, you know. You can't do a speedrun without cracking a few eggs. Anyway, here's the set, so I'm going to play the disclaimer. Hello again, Conte. If you're hearing this, it's because I'm using some Fatalis armor and or like its weapon, and I expect to get a lot of comments along the lines of, oh, I don't have this, how can I replicate this? And I wanted to answer that and simultaneously give a bit of a disclaimer. Primarily, it just doesn't matter. The point of these videos is to show you my playstyle for a given matchup as well as the openings and the way I punish them. Just to run whatever was meta before Fatalis. And if there are any additional skills that I've got on my sets that make the playstyle work, so for example evade, extend, or bow, then obviously just swap those out for some DPS skills. You can drop points of attack, you can drop the agitated charm or whatever, anything like that. Just do your best to try and get to 100 affinity with points of critical eye if possible, but even if you aren't able to get that far, it's still completely fine. Secondly, these videos aren't meant for just people struggling on the special assignment. They're also for people who are trying to grind the other weapons for Fatalis that they haven't made yet, or for example people who are just trying to get better at the fight. Thirdly, I already have a bunch of guides put up on how to farm the Fatalis set without having to be able to beat it, using Plunder Blade and Hornbreak Stress and stuff like that. And I have said many times that the best way to make the fight easier is just to make it set because it's just so powerful. And so this will help with those people too. And lastly, and I know it's a bit of a personal reason, but I like to run the most effective gear as possible so that I can better compare my times to these speedrunners and see how well I'm doing compared to them. I don't really get the time to enjoy video games the way I like to anymore, between editing videos for you guys, my full-time job, and streaming at twitch.tv/conzoa. However, one thing I really do enjoy doing is pushing my hunt times down as low as possible, so I hope you'll understand why I take the opportunity to do that, even if it means I have to run Fatalis gear on these quests. So the disclaimer has just played. Yeah, I've done a lot of videos on the special assignment already, cheesing it, beating it. I'm going to do a couple more as well in the future. The problem is I can't just keep making those forever. I want to move on to using actual sets and stuff. And so I do have to one day make the move to actually using Fatalis' gear. Yeah, so this is the build that I've been using. You can see I'm using Escadora as my non-Fatalis piece. I kind of regret that. I would probably go to use, because I spent so much time not really doing much dragon damage on the chest in the final phase. It might be worth going for like Kulv's legs instead for the slightly more relevant skills on them, because the defense boost in the dragon isn't a huge deal. But anyway, as always, these videos are not supposed to be, here's a magical, you know, immortal build that will kill Fatalis for you. It's always primarily been about the playstyle, you know? The openings that I take, the way I punish them, the way I handle different moves, stuff like that. I'll quickly show you the weapon again, just to show you that it's got a 10 affinity and a health regen augment. The affinity is really nice for Fatalis' dual blades because they have quite a low base affinity. You can see it's minus 30 without the health augment, so that's the reason I'm running that. But obviously, if you're running like Alatrion dual blades or a raw dual blade set that has normal affinity, then you can just adjust your build accordingly. Regarding the skills themselves, the noteworthy sort of defensive skills are obviously part breaker for great reasons that I explained at the start of the video. What else? We've got evasion window, which is really handy because I do have to do a lot of iframing, although it's not as important in this build, to be completely honest with you. The only reason I'm running so much of it is because Fatalis gives you a lot of spare slots. It gives you a lot of defensive skills rather, because there's so many 4 slots, and you've got to put something in there when you're getting like, you know, critical slash something. And so that's the reason you see me stack so much evasion window, but I don't do a huge amount of iframing in this run, I don't think. There's a lot of repositioning away from attacks and into attacks, but there's not too much iframing. So don't worry if you can't fit all of the evasion window in there, it's not a huge deal. Claw boost is obviously really nice. It's a nice skill just to make tenderizing a bunch easier, and the single point of evade extender is what I found to be sort of the amount that gets me away from, you know, when he puts an explosion on the floor, one of those lingering explosions, a single point of evade extender means that I can do like 1 dash or 1.5 dashes and be out of range, but you can vary that according to your whims. The 2 points of heavy artillery on the temporal mantle, again, we explained that throughout the run. What else? Stun res comes from the helmet, so don't worry too much about that. And the stamina skills, Constitution 2 and Stamina Surge 2. If you aren't running Fatalis, I would recommend just running a meta build for whatever playstyle you want. If you're going to go Dragon Dual Blades, I think that's like Alatrion's duels, for example. If you're going Raw, it's probably like Light Break, although I don't know that Raw duels are going to be that great compared to... yeah, probably Alatrion would be better. But anyway, run your preferred build. Get to 100 affinity. In terms of defensive skills, make sure you copy the 3 points of Part Breaker if you want to get this playstyle down. Take a few points of stamina management too. Don't need to go overboard with Constitution, because if you have Feline Black Belt, the food skill, and you have a dash juice, it literally caps at 1 point of Constitution anyway. So you don't need to go overboard with Constitution, but take enough stamina management skills so that you aren't getting yourself killed. Make sure you take Claw Boost as well, of course, and I would recommend a single point of Evade Extender, as well as 2 points of Heavy Artillery. If you don't have the Temporal Mantle slots, then just put them in the regular slots of your build. Other than that, just run the standard meta stuff. Get to 100 affinity, stack Dragon Attack if you're taking like Alatrion Dual Blades or Dragon-based Dual Blades. You know, get your crit boost, just go for the meta and then stack as much row as you can. Very typical meta stuff. I don't think we've gone over this many times in the past. And I think that basically covers it. Let me know if I missed anything. Hopefully this was a good explanation on how to handle this fight with Dual Blades. As always, if you're not running this super optimal Fatalis build, you'll probably take like 10 or 20% longer if you aren't willing to tank Fortify carts. So, you know, it might take you 16 minutes instead. It's really not a huge deal. But yeah, let me know if I missed anything, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be doing an IG run soon. For Patreons, that should be up already. But yeah, take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.